Rebecca Whitmore slid my deadbolt open from the outside and walked into my house with an HOA master key. Her assistant came in right behind her, snapping pictures of my living room, my kitchen, and the blackout curtains in my bedroom like they were touring a model home. My lock clicked shut behind them. Her perfume hit the air before her voice did. Then I heard the words that made the whole thing real. "Interior compliance inspection," she said, already writing on her clipboard. "My curtains. My walls. My private rooms. And the red county access tag in my pocket could shut down every unpermitted remodel on this street by sundown." Rebecca pointed at my thermostat next. 72 is not community efficient, she said. Her assistant wrote that down too. Then she opened a cabinet in my kitchen. That was the second line she crossed. By the time she stepped toward the hallway, this was already bigger than a neighborhood dispute. I set my keys on the entry table and let the metal ring slap the wood. Rebecca turned, smiled, and gave me the kind of look people use when they think a rulebook makes them bulletproof. White blazer. Pearl nails. Perfect hair. The whole Willow Creek HOA package. "You should have responded to our notices," she said. "Now we have to document the violations in person." I looked at the ceiling corner above her shoulder. Small black camera. Steady red light. Recording every step. Every photo. Every word. "You can't inspect the inside of my home," I said. My voice came out flat. "Clean." She gave a little laugh and moved deeper into the house. "When a property affects neighborhood standards, we absolutely can." She said it like she'd practiced it in a mirror. That was when her assistant pushed open my office door with the tip of a pen and started photographing the shelves inside. Not the windows. Not the front facade. Inside. Framed family photos. Private documents. My work bag on the floor. The smell of fresh coffee still hung in that room from 20 minutes earlier. Now it mixed with her citrus perfume and the dry paper smell of violation forms. I followed them down the hall, slow enough not to spook them, close enough to hear every whispered note. Rebecca stopped at my bedroom and pinched the curtain fabric between two fingers like it was contaminated. "Dark lining," she said. "Unapproved street-facing appearance." Street-facing. She was standing 10 feet inside my room saying that. Her assistant took another photo. The shutter sound was soft, but in that silence it landed like a hammer. "My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 38, I live alone, and I bought this house for one reason: peace. No shared walls. No landlord. No stranger with opinions about how I sit, sleep, cook, or breathe behind my own front door. I work for the county. Quiet job. Important enough that people usually change their tone once they understand what's attached to my signature." Rebecca didn't know any of that yet. She just kept moving. She checked my pantry. She opened the laundry room. She wrote down the color of a lamp in my den. Then she reached the one room that should have stopped any decent person cold. My locked records room at the end of the hall. Frosted glass. Steel handle. County seal on a gray file case visible through the panel. Her assistant hesitated for the first time. Rebecca didn't. She tapped the door with her pen and looked back at me. "If there's a prohibited use in there," she said, "I'm authorized to enter." Authorized. That word hung in the air for half a second. Outside, I heard a golf cart roll past and slow near my driveway. Not one witness. Several. Rebecca wrapped her hand around the handle. I didn't stop her. Not then. Because the moment that door opened, this neighborhood was going to have a very different problem. Rebecca turned the handle and pushed the door open without waiting for an answer. The hinge gave a slow, dry creak. The air inside that room felt colder, heavier, like it had been sealed off from the rest of the house. Her assistant leaned in first, camera raised, but stopped halfway through the doorway. "Is that official?" she asked under her breath. Rebecca did not slow down. She stepped inside like every other room belonged to her already. "Everything in this house is subject to review," she said. Her voice echoed slightly against the metal cabinets lining the wall. "Gray uniform. Each one locked. Each one labeled. The county seal stamped on the nearest case caught the light from the hallway. Rebecca noticed it this time. Her fingers brushed over the edge of the cabinet, nails tapping once against the metal. A small, sharp sound. She pulled her hand back like it meant nothing. Then she nodded to her assistant. Document it. The camera shutter clicked again. That sound landed differently in here. Tighter. Contained. I stayed in the doorway. I did not step in. Not yet. The hardwood under my boots felt warmer than the concrete inside that room. Rebecca moved deeper, scanning, writing, turning in a slow circle like she was building a case in her head. Unregistered usage, she said quietly. Possible non-residential function. Her assistant wrote that down word for word. I could hear the pen dragging across paper. Steady. Confident. Like they had done this before. Just not here. Not this room. Rebecca stopped in front of the central table. Steel surface. Clean. Nothing on it but a closed file box and a small black access reader mounted on the side. She tilted her head at it. Curious now. Interested. What is this system? She asked, finally looking at me directly. I met her eyes for the first time since she walked in. County infrastructure access, I said. Simple. No extra words. She smiled again, but it was thinner now. Calculating. That sounds like commercial use inside a residential property, she replied. Her assistant shifted behind her, unsure whether to keep filming or stop. Rebecca made the decision for her. Keep recording. The red light blinked. I could see it reflected in the polished steel. Rebecca reached toward the access reader, hovering her hand just above it. She did not touch it yet. Just close enough to show she could. If you are running unauthorized operations out of your home, she said, that is a direct violation of HOA Code section. She stopped mid-sentence. Not because she forgot the rule. Because she saw the small engraved plate beneath the reader. Property of county utilities. Authorized personnel only. Her assistant read it out loud before she could stop herself. The room went quiet after that. Even the faint hum of the air system felt louder. Rebecca straightened her posture. The smile came back, but it did not reach her eyes this time. That does not change anything, she said. You still have to comply with community standards. She turned slightly, gesturing toward the cabinets. All of this needs to be disclosed. Disclosed. I let that word sit there for a second. Then I stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the room. The temperature drop hit immediately. Cooler air against my skin. Rebecca took half a step back without realizing it. Just enough to notice. I reached past her, not touching her, and tapped my access card against the reader. A soft beep cut through the silence. One of the cabinets unlocked with a solid mechanical click. Not loud, but final. Rebecca's assistant lowered the camera just a fraction. Rebecca did not move this time. She watched the cabinet doors shift open by an inch. Inside, rows of sealed files. Maps. Permits. Control logs. The kind of documents that decide what gets built and what gets shut down. Not just on the street. Across the entire district. I pulled the door closed again before it opened fully. The lock snapped back into place. Another clean sound. Rebecca swallowed, then forced a small laugh. Interesting setup, she said. But it still does not give you the right to ignore HOA authority. Authority. That word felt smaller now. I stepped back toward the doorway, giving them space again. Letting her think she still had control of the situation. Letting her finish what she started. Because she had not asked the one question that mattered. Not yet. And when she finally did, everything in this house was going to mean something very different. Rebecca stepped out of the records room first, her heels clicking sharper against the hardwood than before. The sound carried down the hallway and into the living room, louder than it should have been. Her assistant followed, quieter now, camera still raised but no longer steady. That small tremor in her hands showed up in the soft blur of each photo she took. Rebecca did not look back at the room she had just entered. She moved forward like nothing had changed. Like everything was still under her control. "We will be adding multiple violations," she said, flipping to a fresh page on her clipboard. The paper made a crisp snapping sound as it turned. "Interior misuse, non-disclosure of operational equipment, and obstruction of community standards." She spoke faster now. Tighter. Like she needed to fill the silence before it closed in on her. I walked behind them, slow, keeping the same distance as before. The smell of her perfume had started to fade, replaced by something drier, like paper and dust and warm electronics. Rebecca stopped in the center of my living room again and turned to face me. Sunlight cut across her shoulder, catching the edge of her hair. Perfect, untouched. "You have 24 hours to correct these issues," she said. "Failure to comply will result in fines and potential legal action." Legal action. That word landed flat this time. Not sharp. Not threatening. Just out of place. Her assistant lowered the camera slightly, glancing at Rebecca for confirmation. Rebecca gave a small nod. "Continue documentation," she said. The camera came back up, but slower. Less certain. Rebecca walked toward the front window and pulled at the curtain edge again. The fabric slid through her fingers with a soft whisper. "These need to be replaced immediately," she added. Outside, a golf cart rolled by again. Then another. Tires crunching lightly on the gravel edge of the road. People were slowing down now. Watching. Not stopping. Just enough to notice. Rebecca did not seem to care. Or maybe she did, and she was trying not to show it. She turned back toward me and adjusted the sleeve of her blazer. A small, controlled movement. "I suggest you take this seriously," she said. "We have handled cases like this before." Cases like this. I looked at the hallway behind her. The camera was still recording. Red light steady. No blinking now. Continuous capture. "You have never handled a case like this," I said. My voice stayed even. No emphasis. No raised tone. Just a statement. Rebecca held my gaze for a second longer than before. Then she smiled again, but it felt thinner, stretched at the edges. "Everyone says that," she replied. She stepped closer to the entry table, picking up one of the violation forms she had started earlier. The pen scratched across the paper again. Quick. Decisive. Her assistant moved toward the kitchen one more time, snapping photos of the cabinets, the appliances, the small details that should have never mattered. The sound of the shutter echoed faintly off the tile. I watched Rebecca sign her name at the bottom of the page. Clean signature. Practiced. She tore the sheet free and placed it on my table, right next to my keys. The paper slid slightly, catching on the metal ring before settling flat. "You will receive official notice by the end of the day," she said. Official notice. The word official felt heavier now, but not in the way she intended. She turned toward the door, signaling to her assistant. The inspection was over in her mind. Complete. Controlled. Finished. Her assistant lowered the camera fully this time, exhaling quietly like she had been holding her breath the entire time. Rebecca reached for the front door handle. Her hand paused there for just a fraction of a second. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. But I saw it. That hesitation. That crack. Then she opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. The late afternoon light spilled in behind her, washing out the edges of the room for a moment. Her assistant followed, glancing back once before crossing the threshold. I stayed where I was. Inside. Still. Listening to their footsteps fade down the short walkway. The soft murmur of their voices outside. The distant hum of golf carts slowing, then moving again. The door remained open for a second longer. Then the automatic hinge pulled it shut with a quiet, controlled click. I walked to the entry table and picked up the violation notice. The paper felt warm from her hand. Fresh ink. Still slightly tacky. I read the first line. Then the second. Each word more certain than the last. Each claim written like it had already been decided. I set the paper back down in the exact same spot. Aligned it with the edge of the table. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The screen lit up instantly. Notifications stacked one over another. System. Alerts. Access logs. Timestamps matching every second she had been inside. Every door. Every cabinet. Every step. I scrolled once. Slow. Controlled. Then I tapped the one number I had not used in months. It rang once. Twice. Then a voice answered. I did not introduce myself. I did not explain. I just gave them the address. And the exact time she walked through my front door. I held the phone to my ear until the line went quiet on the other end. No questions. No hesitation. Just a short confirmation and a disconnect. The screen dimmed in my hand, but the notifications kept stacking. Timestamps. Entry logs. Access triggers. Every second Rebecca spent inside my house was now part of a record she did not know existed. I set the phone down next to the violation notice and walked back toward the hallway. The house felt different now. Still the same walls. Same furniture. But the air had shifted. Like something had been set in motion that was not going to stop. The camera light in the corner stayed solid red. Continuous recording. No gaps. I stepped into the records room again and closed the door behind me. The latch sealed with a soft, airtight click. Cooler in here. Controlled. I moved to the cabinet and tapped my access card once more. The same clean beep. The lock disengaged. I pulled the door open fully this time. Inside, rows of files sat in perfect alignment. County permits. Inspection overrides. Infrastructure routing approvals. Names. Addresses. Entire blocks tied together through a single system. My system. I slid one file out halfway, just enough to see the label. Willow Creek Subdivision. Master Development Packet. I pushed it back in. Closed the cabinet. Locked it. Another solid click. Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down the street. Then another. The sound of voices carried faintly through the window. Curious. Low. Controlled, but spreading. Rebecca had made sure people noticed her presence. Now they were noticing something else. I walked back into the living room and picked up the violation notice again. The ink had dried. The paper felt colder now. Less personal. More like evidence. I read the section where she listed non-disclosed operational equipment. The wording was confident. Final. Like she had already decided the outcome. I turned the page over. Blank on the back. No room for what actually mattered. I set it down and walked to the front window. The curtain still hung where she left it, slightly off-center. A thin line of sunlight cut across the floor, sharp and bright. Outside, two neighbors stood near the curb, talking quietly. One of them glanced toward my house, then looked away too quickly. Not neutral anymore. Not uninvolved. That was the shift. Rebecca had not just stepped into my home. She had done it in front of a system that tracked everything she touched. And now that system was awake. My phone buzzed once against the table. A new message. Short. Direct. Units en route. Hold position. I did not reply. I did not need to. I turned off the main lights in the living room. The space dimmed instantly, leaving only the natural light from the window and the faint glow from the hallway camera. The house felt quieter that way. More focused. I moved to the kitchen and rinsed my coffee mug under the sink. The water ran steady, a soft constant sound that filled the silence. I set the mug on the rack and wiped my hands slowly on a towel. No rush. Not anymore. Outside, the low hum of an engine rolled closer. Not a golf cart. Heavier. Slower. Tires crunching over gravel with more weight behind them. Then another engine joined it. The sound layered, building, stopping just short of my driveway. Doors opened. Not slammed. Controlled. Professional. Voices followed, low and precise. No shouting. No confusion. I walked back toward the entryway and stood just behind the door. The wood felt solid under my hand. Familiar. Mine. The handle did not move yet. No knock. Not immediately. They were taking in the scene first. The house. The street. The neighbors pretending not to watch. The system was already ahead of them. Every second Rebecca spent inside had been logged, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Not just a violation. A pattern. A breach. And she had signed her name to it. I looked down at the violation notice one more time, resting on the table. Her signature sat at the bottom. Clean. Confident. Permanent. Then, finally, the knock came. 3 firm hits against the door. Even. Measured. Not aggressive. Just official. I did not reach for the handle right away. I let the sound settle into the walls first. Let it carry through the house she had just walked through like it belonged to her. Then I stepped forward, my hand closing around the handle as another voice called out from the other side. County enforcement. And that was when everything she thought she controlled started to shift. The handle turned under my grip and I pulled the door open halfway. 2 county vehicles sat angled along the curb, engines still running, low and steady. 3 men stood on the walkway, dark polos, badges clipped at the belt, eyes already scanning past me into the house. The one in front stepped forward just enough to be seen clearly. Mid-40s. Calm posture. He held a tablet in one hand, screen glowing faintly in the late afternoon light. Daniel Mercer? He asked. I nodded once and stepped aside. No words. No explanation. He crossed the threshold first. His boots made a dull sound against the hardwood, softer than Rebecca's heels, but heavier in meaning. The other 2 followed, slower, taking in the layout, the open spaces, the hallway that led to the back of the house. The lead officer glanced at the camera in the corner. Saw the red light. Understood immediately. Recording system active? He asked. Continuous, I said. He gave a small nod and tapped his tablet twice. A soft confirmation tone answered him. The sound was almost identical to the access reader in the records room. Clean. Official. He turned toward the entry table and looked down at the violation notice. Did not touch it. Just read the top line. His jaw tightened for a second, then relaxed. They were inside? He asked. I did not answer right away. I walked past him, down the hallway, and stopped at the open records room door. The cooler air spilled out into the hall again. I pushed the door wider and stepped inside. They followed without hesitation this time. No one asked for permission. They did not need to. The lead officer stepped up to the central table and looked at the access reader. Then at the cabinets. Then at me. Show me, he said. I pulled the card from my pocket and tapped it once. The same beep cut through the room. One cabinet unlocked. I opened it just enough for him to see inside. He leaned in, scanning the labels, the seals, the documentation stacked with precision. His eyes moved quickly. Efficient. No wasted motion. Then he stepped back and gave a short exhale through his nose. Not surprise. Recognition. He turned to the others. Log it, he said. One of them stepped forward with a small device and began recording the cabinet ID, the reader, the room itself. No photos. Just data capture. Structured. Quiet. The lead officer looked back at me. Time of entry? He asked. 16:23, I said. He checked his tablet. Nodded once. And duration? 41 minutes, I replied. He tapped again, syncing the numbers. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the system and the soft clicks of their equipment. Outside, another car rolled past, slower now, then stopped somewhere down the block. The presence was spreading. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just inevitable. The lead officer stepped out of the room and back into the hallway. He moved toward the living room window and glanced outside. 2 more neighbors stood near the curb now, pretending to talk while watching everything unfold. He did not react. Just noted it. Then he turned back to me. "Did they access any secured materials?" he asked. I shook my head. "No contact. Visual only." He nodded again. That mattered. The line she crossed was already enough. Going further would have changed everything. He walked back to the entry table and finally picked up the violation notice. Held it between 2 fingers. Read it once, slower this time. His eyes paused on the signature at the bottom. Rebecca Whitmore. Clean. Clear. Documented. He set the paper back down exactly where he found it. "We are going to need a full copy of your footage," he said. "Already backed up," I replied. He gave the smallest hint of a smile. Not friendly. Just acknowledgement. "Good," he said. One of the other officers stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Vehicle matching HOA president just left the subdivision," he said. "Heading east." The lead officer nodded without looking away from me. "She will not get far," he said quietly. Not a threat. A statement of process. Outside, the sound of another engine approached, then stopped directly in front of the house. A different tone this time. Lower. Heavier. More official. Doors opened. More footsteps. The system was expanding now, layer by layer. I walked back to the hallway and looked at the camera again. The red light stayed solid. Every second still being captured. Every movement now part of a larger record. The lead officer stepped beside me, following my gaze. "You understand what this triggers?" he said. I did not look at him. "Yes," I answered. He nodded once. Then turned toward the door as a new voice called out from the porch. Not county this time. Different tone. Different authority. And that was when the situation moved beyond anything Rebecca thought she was controlling. The voice on the porch carried through the door before anyone moved. "State Compliance Unit," it said, calm and controlled. The county officer beside me did not react right away. He just exhaled once and stepped toward the door. The room felt tighter now. Smaller. Like the walls were closing in around something bigger than the house itself. I stayed where I was, near the hallway, watching the reflection of movement in the glass of the front window. The county officer opened the door fully this time. 2 more individuals stood outside, both in dark jackets with state insignia stitched clean across the chest. No rush in their posture. No confusion. They already knew why they were here. The lead county officer gave a short nod. "You got the call," he said. One of the state agents stepped inside, eyes moving across the room in a single sweep. Furniture. Camera. Entry table. The violation notice. He paused for half a second at that paper, then looked at me. "You are Mercer," he said. Not a question. I nodded once. He stepped forward, extending a hand briefly, then pulling it back before contact. Professional distance. "We are going to need to confirm chain of access," he said. His voice was quieter than the county officer's. Lower. Measured. The kind of tone that did not need volume to carry weight. The county officer gestured toward the hallway. "Records room is secured. Access logs are intact," he said. The state agent turned his head slightly, acknowledging that, then moved in that direction. The others followed, forming a quiet line behind him. Their boots made a different sound than the county team. Softer tread. Less echo. More controlled. I walked with them, keeping the same steady pace as before. No one spoke as we entered the room again. The cooler air settled over all of us at once. The state agent stepped up to the central table and looked at the access reader, then at the cabinet. His hand hovered over the engraved plate for a moment. Property of county utilities. Authorized personnel only. He read it silently. Then he looked at me. "Activate," he said. I tapped the card. The same clean beep cut through the silence. The cabinet unlocked. This time, he opened it fully. No hesitation. No partial view. The door swung out with a controlled motion, revealing the full depth of the files inside. He leaned in slightly, scanning the contents. His eyes moved faster than Rebecca's ever had. Focused. Precise. He reached in and pulled out one file, flipping it open just enough to confirm the seal, the signatures, the routing data inside. Then he closed it and returned it to its place. Exact alignment. No disruption. Confirmed, he said. One word. Enough. The second state agent stepped forward with a handheld device, scanning the cabinet ID, the access reader, the room coordinates. The device emitted a soft tone with each capture. Rhythmic. Controlled. Building a record in real time. The county officer stood back now, watching, letting the state team take lead. The shift was subtle but clear. Authority had moved up a level. The state agent turned back to me. Did the HOA representative make physical contact with any secured system? He asked. No, I said. Visual inspection only. He held my gaze for a second longer, then gave a small nod. An entry was unauthorized, he added. Not a question. I did not answer. I did not need to. The room itself had already answered that. The camera logs. The timestamps. The sealed cabinets. Everything aligned. He stepped back from the cabinet and let the door close. The lock engaged with a solid, final click. The sound echoed slightly, then faded. Outside, another vehicle arrived. The sound of tires rolling to a stop, followed by the quiet closing of doors. The presence outside was growing. Not chaotic. Structured. Layered. The state agent moved toward the doorway, pausing just before stepping out. We will need full footage and access logs transferred immediately, he said. Already prepared, I replied. He nodded once. No surprise. Just confirmation. He stepped into the hallway, and the others followed. The space felt warmer again as we left the records room behind. The living room came back into view, sunlight now lower, stretching longer shadows across the floor. The violation notice still sat on the table. Unmoved. Unchanged. But it no longer looked like a warning. It looked like evidence. The state agent stopped beside it, glancing down once more. His fingers hovered above the paper, then pulled back without touching it. She signed this herself, he said quietly. The county officer gave a short, almost imperceptible nod. Yes, he replied. The state agent looked up at me again. Then she documented the entry under her own authority, he said. The words settled into the room like a weight. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. Outside, voices shifted. Someone was being directed. Calmly. Firmly. No resistance. Just process. The state agent turned toward the door as another voice approached from the porch. Closer this time. More immediate. And that was when the situation moved into a stage Rebecca had never prepared for. The voice on the porch stepped closer, firm and steady. Rebecca Whitmore, it called out. Not loud, but clear enough to carry through the walls. Every person in the room paused for a fraction of a second. The state agent near the door shifted his stance, turning slightly to face the entrance without rushing. The county officer beside him folded his arms loosely, watching. Outside, the low murmur of neighbors faded into silence. Even the distant hum of engines seemed to pull back. I stayed where I was, just inside the hallway, with a clear line of sight to the front door. The handle moved. Slow this time. Not confident. Not smooth. Rebecca stepped inside again, but she did not cross the threshold the same way she had before. Her posture had changed. Shoulders tighter. Chin lifted just enough to hold control. Her assistant hovered behind her, camera lowered, no longer recording. Rebecca's eyes scanned the room and stopped on the state agents first. Then the county officers. Then finally me. The silence stretched for a second too long. "What is this?" she asked. Her voice was still composed, but there was a slight edge now. Less certainty. More calculation. The state agent closest to the door stepped forward half a pace. "State Compliance Unit," he said. No extra words. No explanation. Rebecca's expression did not change immediately. She shifted her weight slightly, one heel clicking against the floor. "There must be some mistake," she said. "We were conducting a lawful inspection." Lawful. The word landed differently now. The state agent did not respond right away. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim folder, flipping it open with a smooth motion. Paper against paper. Clean. Controlled. "We have confirmed unauthorized entry into a secured infrastructure access site," he said. Each word spaced evenly. No rush. Rebecca blinked once. Just once. Then she straightened again. "This is a private residence," she replied. "The Homeowners Association has authority to enforce compliance within the community." Her assistant shifted behind her, glancing between the agents and the hallway. The camera hung loosely in her hand now. No longer a shield. The county officer stepped forward slightly, enough to enter Rebecca's line of sight. "Not inside secured operational zones," he said. Short. Direct. Rebecca's gaze snapped toward him, then back to the state agent. She opened her mouth to respond, then paused. That pause stretched. The room stayed quiet. The camera in the corner kept recording. Red light steady. Every word. Every hesitation. Captured. Rebecca took a small step forward, as if reclaiming space. "If there is equipment here that affects community standards, we have the right to." She stopped again. The state agent lifted one page from the folder and held it at chest level. Not close enough for her to take. Just enough for her to see the header. County Utilities Access Authorization. Official seal. Signature line. Rebecca's eyes flicked across it. Quick. Then slower. The shift was subtle, but it was there. Her assistant took a half step back without realizing it. The state agent lowered the page slightly. "You documented your entry," he said, glancing toward the table where the violation note is still Saturday. Signed and time-stamped. Rebecca's jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Then she forced a small smile. "That is standard procedure," she said. The state agent nodded once. "For inspections," he replied. "Not for accessing restricted systems." The word restricted settled into the room like a weight. Rebecca's eyes moved past him, down the hallway, toward the records room. She could not see inside from here, but she knew exactly what was there now. The assistant shifted again, this time fully lowering the camera to her side. The strap brushed softly against her wrist. No one else moved. No one interrupted. The silence built. Rebecca turned back to me. For the first time since she arrived, her focus stayed there. Direct. Searching. "You did not disclose any of this," she said. Her voice was lower now. More controlled. But different. I did not answer. I did not need to. The state agent spoke instead. "He is not required to disclose secured infrastructure access to a homeowners association," he said. Simple. Final. Rebecca held her position for a second longer. Then she exhaled, almost silently. The confidence she walked in with had not disappeared. But it had shifted. Cracked. Recalibrating. Outside, another vehicle door closed. Closer this time. Heavier. The sound echoed through the porch and into the entryway. The state agent glanced toward the door, then back at Rebecca. "We are going to continue this conversation outside," he said. Not a request. Rebecca did not move immediately. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of her clipboard. Then she nodded once. Small. Controlled. She turned toward the door, her assistant following without a word. As she stepped back onto the porch, the light hit her again, but it did not soften anything this time. It exposed it. The state agent paused at the threshold, looking back into the house for a brief second. His eyes moved from the camera to the hallway to me. Then he stepped outside as well. The door stayed open. The voices outside grew clearer now. More structured. More official. And that was when the next layer of authority arrived. The air outside had changed by the time I stepped onto the porch. Not louder. Not chaotic. Just heavier. Like everything had settled into a structure no one could interrupt anymore. Rebecca stood near the edge of the walkway, back straight, chin lifted, still holding her clipboard like it meant something. But she was no longer the center of the scene. 3 state vehicles lined the curb now. Doors closed. Engines idling low. 2 more agents stood near the front gate, speaking quietly into radios. Short phrases. Clear codes. No wasted words. The state agent who had spoken inside positioned himself between Rebecca and the steps. Not blocking. Just defining space. "We need to clarify your actions inside that property," he said. His tone stayed even. No pressure. No emotion. Rebecca shifted her weight slightly, heels pressing into the concrete. "I have already explained," she said. "We conducted a compliance inspection under HOA authority." The word authority sounded thinner out here. Less anchored. One of the agents near the vehicle stepped closer, holding a small tablet. He turned the screen toward the lead agent. Silent exchange. A nod followed. Then another. Rebecca watched the movement, her eyes tracking the screen, the hands, the quiet signals passing between them. She was trying to read it. Trying to find where she still fit in. "Your entry time has been confirmed," the lead agent said. 16:23. He did not look at his device when he said it. He did not need to. Rebecca's fingers tightened slightly around the clipboard. "That matches our documentation," she replied quickly. Too quickly. The agent nodded once. "It does," he said. "And your duration?" He paused just long. Enough for the number to settle. 41 minutes. Rebecca gave a small, controlled nod. Still holding the line. Still playing the role. "That is standard for a full inspection," she said. The agent did not respond immediately. He stepped half a pace closer, lowering his voice just enough that the words felt more direct. "Inside a secured access zone, it is not." The pause that followed was different this time. Not confusion. Not delay. Recognition. Rebecca's eyes shifted, not to the agents, but past them. Toward the house. Toward the hallway she had walked through. Toward the room she now understood too late. Her assistant stood a few feet behind her, completely still, camera hanging at her side, forgotten. One of the neighbors across the street shifted position, pretending to check a phone while watching everything unfold. The street had gone quiet. No passing carts. No idle chatter. Just observation. The lead agent gestured slightly toward the vehicles. Another agent stepped forward, holding a slim folder. He opened it, flipping to a page already marked. The paper caught the light briefly before settling. "You documented the entry under your own name," the agent said, glancing at the page. "Signed. Time-stamped. Filed as inspection activity." Rebecca nodded again, but slower now. Measured. "Yes," she said. "That is correct." The agent closed the folder halfway, not fully, just enough to keep his place. "That documentation now establishes direct access to a restricted system without authorization," he said. No emphasis. No change in tone. Just a line placed exactly where it needed to be. Rebecca's jaw tightened again, more visible this time. Her shoulders stayed squared, but the space around her had shifted. The structure she relied on was no longer holding. "There must be some clarification needed," she said. "We were not informed of any restricted designation." The lead agent shook his head once. "Small. Final. Designation is not contingent on HOA awareness," he said. A faint breeze moved across the porch, lifting the edge of Rebecca's blazer slightly before letting it fall back into place. The sound of a radio crackled softly near the vehicles. A voice responded. Short. Confirmed. Process moving forward. Rebecca looked back toward me then. Not sharply. Not accusing. Just searching for something that had already passed. I did not move. I did not speak. The system was speaking for me now. The agent followed her line of sight, then returned his attention to her. We are going to formalize this on record, he said. At this time. The words were steady. Measured. Final. Another agent stepped closer, device in hand, ready to capture statements. Rebecca exhaled once, slow, controlled. Then she nodded. Small. Accepting the next step without admitting anything yet. The clipboard in her hand no longer looked like authority. It looked like evidence she could not put down. The lead agent turned slightly, signaling to the others. Positions adjusted. Roles aligned. No one raised their voice. No one rushed. The entire scene moved with quiet precision. Rebecca stood in the center of it, still composed, still upright, but no longer directing anything. And as the first formal statement began, the last piece of control she thought she had slipped out of reach. The agent lifted the device and began recording without raising his voice. State your name for the record, he said. Rebecca did not hesitate this time. Rebecca Whitmore, she answered, steady, controlled, like she was still standing at the head of a meeting. The agent nodded once. Position, he said. President of Willow Creek Homeowners Association, she replied. Her voice held its shape, but something under it had shifted. Not weaker. Just tighter. The agent tapped the screen lightly. A soft tone confirmed the entry. You initiated entry into the property located at this address at 1623, he continued. Rebecca nodded. Yes. Purpose, he said. Compliance inspection, she answered. The word landed in the open air, thinner now, almost detached from everything around it. The agent paused for a second, letting the silence stretch just enough. Then he continued. Were you aware that the interior space contained secured infrastructure access systems under county jurisdiction? Not a question mark at the end. Just a statement waiting for acknowledgement. Rebecca held still. Just long enough to be noticed. No, she said. One word. Clean. Direct. The agent nodded again. Did you verify jurisdictional boundaries prior to entry? Rebecca's fingers tightened around the clipboard. The paper edge bent slightly under the pressure. We followed HOA procedure, she said, not answering the question. Redirecting. The agent did not push. He just recorded it. Response noted, he said quietly. Behind him, another agent adjusted position, capturing angles, aligning documentation. Everything was being built piece by piece. Not rushed. Not forced. Just placed where it needed to be. Rebecca shifted her stance again, her heels scraping lightly against the concrete. A small sound, but sharp in the quiet. She glanced briefly toward the street, where more neighbors had gathered at a distance. No one stepped closer. No one spoke. They just watched. The agent continued. You accessed interior rooms beyond visual exterior inspection, he said. Rebecca nodded once. Yes. You documented those areas under inspection authority, he added. Yes, she repeated. The clipboard in her hand looked different now. Not a tool. Not control. Just a record she could not separate from herself. The agent glanced down at his device, then back up. You did not receive authorization from county or state to enter secured zones, he said. This time, the pause came from Rebecca. Longer. Noticeable. She did not answer immediately. The assistant behind her shifted again, stepping slightly farther back, creating distance without being told. Rebecca finally spoke. We were not informed that such authorization was required, she said. Her tone was still measured, but the edges were visible now. The agent recorded the statement without reaction. "Response noted," he said again. Same tone. Same pace. The structure did not change. Another agent stepped forward, holding a small device toward Rebecca. "We will need your documentation," he said. Rebecca looked at the device, then at her clipboard. For a moment, she did not move. Then she handed it over. Slow. Controlled. The transfer felt heavier than it should have. The agent took it, scanning the pages quickly. His eyes paused on the signature at the bottom. Then he tapped the device, capturing the record. The clipboard did not come back. Rebecca's hand lowered slightly, empty now. For the first time since she stepped onto the property, she was not holding anything. No pen. No paper. No authority. Just presence. The lead agent looked at her again. "You understand that your documentation establishes direct involvement," he said. Rebecca did not respond right away. Her gaze shifted once more toward the house. Toward the doorway she had walked through without hesitation. Toward the camera still recording inside. Then back to the agent. "I understand," she said quietly. The words were steady, but different now. Not defensive. Not assertive. Just accepted. The agent nodded once. "We are going to proceed with formal review," he said. "Effective immediately." Behind him, the other agents moved in sync. Devices active. Notes aligned. Roles shifting again as the process moved forward. Rebecca stood still, watching it happen, no longer part of the movement. The system had fully taken over. Around her, the structure she had relied on was gone, replaced by something larger, more precise, and completely out of her control. I stayed near the doorway, just inside the line between house and street, watching the scene settle into its next phase. The light had shifted lower now, stretching shadows across the porch and down the walkway. The quiet held. No raised voices. No sudden moves. Just the steady progression of something inevitable. Rebecca took a slow breath, her shoulders rising slightly, then falling. She looked at me one more time. Not with certainty. Not with authority. Just with the realization that she had stepped into something she never fully understood. And as the agents began outlining the next steps, the one question she had never asked finally started to matter. The agents did not rush the next step. They shifted positions with quiet precision, each movement controlled, each role clear. The lead state agent stepped slightly to the side, giving space to another official approaching from the vehicles. This one carried no tablet. No folder. Just a slim case under one arm and a badge that caught the last stretch of sunlight. He stopped at the base of the steps and looked up once. Not at Rebecca. Not at the agents. At the house. Taking it in as a whole. Then he walked forward. Rebecca straightened again as he approached, instinct pulling her posture back into place. "Sir?" she said, voice steady but lower now. He did not respond to the greeting. He stopped a few feet in front of her, opened the slim case, and removed a single document. The paper made a soft sound as it cleared the edge. He did not hand it to her. He held it at his side, angled just enough that she could see the seal. State Infrastructure Oversight Division. Rebecca's eyes locked onto it for a second. Then she looked back up. "We have already provided statements," she said. The man nodded once. "You have," he replied. His voice was calm. Flat. Final. He stepped one pace closer, still outside her reach, and lifted the document slightly. "This is not about statements anymore," he said. The words settled into the space between them. No emphasis. No volume. Just placement. Rebecca's fingers flexed at her side, empty now without the clipboard. Her assistant stood completely still behind her, no longer trying to follow, no longer trying to document anything. The structure had moved beyond her. The official glanced briefly toward the state agent, then back to Rebecca. "You initiated access into a registered infrastructure control point," he said. You documented that access under your own authority. Rebecca inhaled slowly, steadying herself. Under HOA jurisdiction, she replied. The correction came automatically. The official did not react to it. Jurisdiction does not extend to restricted systems, he said. Same tone. Same pace. The difference now was not in the words. It was in who was saying them. Rebecca's gaze shifted again, this time more openly, toward the house. Toward the door. Toward the space she had entered without hesitation. The official followed her glance for a fraction of a second, then returned to her. At this stage, the process transitions, he said, from review to enforcement. The word enforcement landed heavier than anything before it. Not sharp. Not aggressive. Just immovable. Around them, the agents adjusted again. Subtle. Measured. Devices aligned. Positions set. The system tightening into its next phase. Rebecca nodded once. Small. Controlled. What does that mean? She asked. Her voice did not break. But it carried less certainty now. The official lifted the document slightly higher. Not offering it yet. Just marking the moment. It means your actions are now subject to formal action under state and county authority, he said. No pause. No gap. Effective immediately. The silence that followed was different. Not empty. Full. Every person present understood the shift. Rebecca held her position for a second longer. Then another. Her assistant took one step back, then stopped, as if realizing movement no longer mattered. The official lowered the document again, still not handing it over. You will be notified of next steps through official channels, he continued. You are not to return to this property or initiate further inspection activity. Rebecca's jaw tightened slightly. We were acting in good faith, she said. The statement came softer. Not defensive. Not assertive. Just placed into the space. The official nodded once. That will be reviewed, he said. No agreement. No dismissal. Just recorded. The system did not argue. It documented. A radio crackled near the vehicles. A short exchange followed. Confirmations. Codes. The structure extending beyond the street now. Beyond the neighborhood. Rebecca looked at me again. Longer this time. Not searching for leverage. Not asserting control. Just measuring what had already happened. I did not move. I did not respond. There was nothing left to say. The official closed the slim case with a soft click, sealing the document inside. Then he stepped back, signaling to the agents with a slight tilt of his head. The formation shifted again, opening space, preparing for the next movement in the process. Rebecca exhaled slowly, her shoulders lowering just enough to notice. The light had dropped further now, shadows stretching across the porch and down the walkway. The scene had settled into something final, something structured, something she could not redirect. And as the agents began to reposition for what came next, the reality of what she had set in motion reached a point she could no longer step back from. No one moved for a moment after the case closed. The quiet settled deeper, like the entire street had decided to hold its breath at the same time. The official stepped back into line with the others, his role complete, his presence still carrying weight without effort. Rebecca stood where she was, shoulders squared, but the shape of that stance had changed. It was no longer control. It was containment. The lead state agent glanced at his device, then toward the county officer. A small nod passed between them. No words. Just confirmation. The next step was already set. We are going to document final positioning, the state agent said. His voice remained even, but there was a shift in cadence now. Less explanation. More execution. One of the agents moved closer to Rebecca, not touching her, just entering her space enough to define a boundary she had not felt before. Please remain where you are, he said. Simple. Direct. Rebecca did not resist. She nodded once, almost automatically, and held her position. Her assistant stayed behind her, hands at her sides, completely still, eyes fixed somewhere just past the agents, no longer trying to understand. The county officer stepped onto the porch beside them, tablet raised, aligning the final logs with what had already been recorded inside. The screen cast a faint glow across his face as he scrolled, cross-checking timestamps, entry points, duration markers. Each confirmation came with a soft tone. Clean. Precise. Building the final layer of the record. I remained just inside the doorway, the threshold still marking the line between my space and everything unfolding outside. The camera behind me continued its steady capture. No gaps. No missed seconds. Rebecca's gaze shifted again, slower now, moving from the agents to the vehicles to the neighbors across the street. More of them had gathered, keeping distance but no longer pretending not to watch. The presence had become undeniable. Not dramatic. Just real. "Is this necessary?" Rebecca asked quietly. The question came. Softer than anything she had said before. Not defiant. Not argumentative. Just measured. The state agent did not look up from his device. "Yes," he replied. One word. No expansion. The agent nearest to Rebecca adjusted his stance slightly, positioning himself at an angle that kept her within view of both the porch and the walkway. Still no contact. Still no force. Just structure. Rebecca inhaled slowly, her chest rising, then falling with controlled precision. She was holding herself together. That much was clear. But the environment around her had already moved past that point. The official who had delivered the notice stepped forward again, this time without opening the case. "We are concluding the initial phase," he said. "You will receive formal documentation within the next business cycle." Rebecca nodded again. Smaller this time. More contained. "Understood," she said. The word felt different now. Not a response. A recognition. The assistant behind her shifted once, then stilled again, as if unsure whether movement still had meaning. The county officer finished his entries and lowered the tablet. "All records aligned," he said. The confirmation passed through the group without reaction. It did not need one. The system had reached its checkpoint. The state agent glanced once toward me, just for a moment, then back to Rebecca. "You are free to leave," he said. Not dismissal. Not permission. Just the next step. Rebecca did not move immediately. She looked at the porch, the agents, the vehicles, then finally at the door behind me. The house. The place she had entered without hesitation less than an hour ago. The difference was visible now. Clear. Measured. Permanent. She took one step back, then another, turning slightly toward the walkway. Her heels made a softer sound now, less sharp against the concrete. Her assistant followed, keeping pace without being told. The agents did not follow. They did not need to. The process had already moved beyond presence. Rebecca reached the edge of the walkway and paused for a fraction of a second. Just long enough to look back once more. Not at the agents. Not at the vehicles. At the house. Then she turned and walked toward her car. The door opened. Closed. The engine started. Low. Controlled. The vehicle pulled away slowly, merging back into a street that no longer felt the same. The agents remained in place, completing final checks, aligning devices, sealing the moment into record. I stayed at the doorway, watching the last trace of her presence disappear down the block. The light had dropped further now, shadows stretching longer, sharper. The house behind me remained unchanged. Solid. Quiet. Mine. And as the final confirmations came through and the agents began preparing to clear the scene, one thing settled in with absolute clarity. This had never been about a simple inspection. And it was never going to end that way. The engines shut off one by one, leaving the street in a quiet that felt earned. Not empty. Settled. The agents did not rush to leave. They moved through the final steps with the same measured pace, confirming, aligning, closing out what had been opened. The state agent near the porch checked his device one last time, then looked toward the county officer. A small nod passed between them again. No words. None needed. The system had reached completion for now. One of the agents stepped toward the entry table and sighed, careful not to cross the threshold fully. He glanced at the violation notice still resting beside my keys. The paper had not moved since Rebecca placed it there. He leaned slightly, reading the header again, then the signature at the bottom. "We will take a copy," he said. I nodded once and stepped inside to retrieve it. The paper felt different in my hand now. Lighter. Less like a threat. More like something already resolved. I handed it over. The agent scanned it quickly with his device, capturing every line, every mark, every detail Rebecca had written with full confidence less than an hour ago. The device emitted a soft tone. Recorded. Stored. Sealed into the same system that had tracked her every step. He handed the paper back without comment. I placed it exactly where it had been. Same position. Same angle. The state agent stepped closer to the doorway, stopping just short of entering. "You will receive formal documentation as well," he said. His tone was steady, neutral, but there was a subtle shift now. Less investigation. More closure. "Your cooperation has been noted." I gave a small nod. No words. The moment did not call for any. Behind him, the other agents began returning equipment to their cases. Devices powered down. Files secured. Movements efficient, practiced, without excess. The official who had carried the slim case remained near the steps, watching the final process with the same calm presence. When the last device was stored, he closed the case again with that same soft click. Consistent. Controlled. He stepped forward slightly, just enough to be heard without raising his voice. "The review will extend beyond this site," he said. "Associated parties, procedures, and documentation will be evaluated." The words were clear. Broader than the street. Broader than the house. Rebecca had not just stepped into the wrong place. She had triggered something larger than herself. The county officer tapped his tablet once more, then lowered it. "All logs synchronized," he said. Another quiet confirmation. The structure was complete. The state agent gave a final nod. "We are clear here," he said. The agents began moving toward their vehicles, not all at once, but in sequence. One, then another, then the next. Each departure as controlled as their arrival. No rush. No noise. Just a gradual release of presence. The neighbors across the street began to disperse as well, slower, quieter, the tension easing without anyone acknowledging it directly. Doors closed. Engines started. Conversations resumed at a distance. The street returned to something familiar, but not quite the same. The state agent remained for a moment longer at the base of the steps. He looked at the house again. Then at me. "If there are any further attempts at access," he said, "you contact us directly." Not a warning. A line drawn. I nodded once. "Understood," I replied. He gave a final acknowledgement and turned away, walking toward the last remaining vehicle. The door opened. Closed. The engine started. Then the vehicle pulled away, joining the others as they disappeared down the street. The sound faded gradually, leaving only the quiet hum of the neighborhood settling back into place. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds longer, letting the silence return fully. The camera behind me still recorded, steady and constant, capturing the final empty frame of the day. I stepped back inside and closed the door. The latch clicked softly. Familiar. Secure. The house felt the same again. Calm. Still. Untouched. I walked to the entry table and looked at the violation notice one more time. The ink. The signature. The certainty it once carried. Then I slid it into a drawer and closed it. Slow. Final. The system had taken over when it needed to. It had done exactly what it was designed to do. And as the last trace of activity faded from the street outside, one truth remained clear in the quiet that followed. She had walked in believing she controlled the rules. She left without realizing she had rewritten them. The house stayed quiet long after the last engine sound faded from the street. No footsteps. No voices. Just the faint hum of the air system and the steady red light from the camera in the corner. I walked slowly through each room, not checking for damage, not looking for anything out of place, just moving through the space the way I always had. The living room still held the same light, softer now as the sun dropped lower. The curtain Rebecca had touched hung slightly uneven, a small shift that caught my eye every time I passed it. I reached up and adjusted it back into place. The fabric slid smoothly under my fingers. Simple. Ordinary. Mine. I moved down the hallway next, past the office, past the kitchen, toward the records room. The air cooled again as I stepped inside. Controlled. Stable. The cabinets stood exactly as they had before. Locked. Sealed. Untouched. I tapped my card against the reader once, not to open anything, just to hear the sound. A soft beep answered. Clean. Precise. The system still active. Still responding. I stepped back and let the door close behind me. The latch sealed with that same quiet click. Outside, the neighborhood had returned to its usual rhythm. Distant conversations. A car passing slowly. Someone closing a garage door down the block. Nothing out of place. Nothing urgent. But the shift remained. It was subtle, but it was there. People had seen something today. Not the details. Not the structure behind it. But enough to understand that the rules they thought were fixed were not as simple as they believed. I returned to the living room and sat down for the first time since it all started. The couch felt the same. Firm. Familiar. I rested my hands on my knees and listened to the quiet settle fully into the walls. My phone buzzed once on the table. A new message. No number attached. Just a short line. Initial review complete. Further action pending. I read it once, then set the phone down without replying. The process had already moved beyond anything I needed to say. Rebecca would be dealing with that now. Not here. Not in this house. Somewhere else. Within a system she never thought applied to her. I leaned back slightly and looked toward the entryway. The door stayed closed. Solid. Secure. The same door she had opened without hesitation less than an hour earlier. The difference now was not in the lock. It was in what stood behind it. I stood up again and walked to the entry table. The drawer where I had placed the violation notice sat closed, flush with the surface. I pulled it open slowly and looked down at the paper inside. The signature still there. The ink still sharp. But the meaning had changed completely. I closed the drawer again without touching it. There was no reason to. The record already existed where it mattered. I turned off the last light in the room and let the space fall into shadow, lit only by the fading daylight through the window. The camera continued its steady recording, capturing the stillness now instead of movement. Every second it counted for. Every moment stored. I walked back toward the hallway, pausing once more at the threshold of the records room. The system behind that door had done exactly what it was designed to do. It did not argue. It did not react. It simply recorded, verified, and responded when the line was crossed. Rebecca had never asked where that line actually was. She had assumed it stopped at the front door. She had assumed the inside of this house was just another space she could measure, document, and control. She had been wrong. Not because I stopped her. Not because I raised my voice or pushed back. But because the moment she stepped inside, she entered something she did not understand. Something that did not answer to her authority, her rules, or her system. I reached up and turned off the hallway light, leaving only the faint glow from the camera behind me. The house settled into complete quiet. Calm. Unchanged. And as I stood there for a final moment, one thought stayed clear and steady, the same way it had been from the beginning. She never realized the house was never the thing she should have been trying to control.